My family held a meeting about what to do with me, behind my back, so I vanished that night and built a fortune they're now suing each other over. Your encouragement keeps us telling stories. Show support by subscribing, and while you're here, let us know where in the world you're watching from. I stood frozen outside Mama's dining room, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Inside, voices rose and fell like waves crashing against rocks. My family. Talking about me. Without me. Ariana's been a burden long enough, my older sister Tamara said, her voice dripping with disgust. 23 years old, still living here, thinking she's gonna make it with that ridiculous app idea. My stomach twisted. I'd been working on my financial literacy app for 2 years, pouring every spare moment into code, design, market research. I pressed my ear against the wood. She contributes to rent, Mama said weakly. $500 a month. That's nothing. My brother Luke cut in. We could rent her room out for $1,200 easy. Do you know how much money we're losing? I got bills, Mama. Real bills. I heard ice clinking in glasses. They were drinking. Having a whole strategy session about my existence like I was some problem to solve. The girl needs a reality check, Daddy's voice rumbled. I've been too soft. Should have pushed her into nursing like Tamara. Stable income, benefits. None of this Silicon Valley fantasy nonsense. We need to give her an ultimatum, Tamara pressed. 2 months. Get a real job or get out. And she needs to pay market rate rent immediately. $1,200, plus utilities. My heart hammered against my ribs. $1,500 total. On my part-time retail salary of $1,800 a month. They knew that was impossible. I think that's fair, Mama said quietly. Something inside me shattered. I backed away from the door, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. How did we get here? Memories flooded back. 7 years old, watching Tamara's dance recital while Mama and Daddy cheered. I'd won the school science fair that same day, but we'd left before the ceremony because Tamara's performance is more important, baby. 12 years old, overhearing Mama tell Aunt Cicely, Ariana's just not as naturally gifted as her sister. We can't all be blessed with the same talents. 16 years old, watching them drain my college fund, the one Grandma Pearl had started before she died, to pay for Luke's legal fees when he wrecked his car while driving drunk. Family takes care of family, Daddy had said, never meeting my eyes. 18 years old, working 2 jobs to afford community college while Tamara got a full ride to their alma mater, not because of grades, but because of connections. Because they knew the right people. Because they fought for her. 21 years old, graduating with honors in computer science, and nobody came to the ceremony. We forgot, baby. Tamara had that important job interview. Now, 23, listening to them plot my removal like I was garbage cluttering their lives. I'd always been the expendable one. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Rochelle, how'd the beta testing go? Right. My app. The one thing that was truly mine. 50 beta users, and the feedback had been incredible. But I'd been too scared to tell my family, knowing they'd mock it. I looked at Mama's closed door. Then I made a decision. I climbed the stairs to my room, each step deliberate and silent. My hands shook as I pulled my laptop from my desk and opened my banking app. $3,247. Everything I'd saved from my job at TechMart and the little freelance coding work I'd done on the side. Not much. But it was mine. I opened a new tab and searched for apartments. Studio, cheap, available immediately. My eyes landed on one in a neighborhood I'd never considered, rough around the edges, but the rent was $600 a month. I could swing that. Below me, I heard chairs scraping. The meeting was ending. Let's tell her tomorrow, Luke said. Give her the weekend to find her reality check. I'll make her favorite breakfast, Mama added. Soften the blow. I almost laughed. Pecan waffles wouldn't fix betrayal. I worked through the night with manic precision. By 3 a.m., I'd applied for the apartment, received approval for immediate move-in, and packed 2 suitcases with everything essential: clothes, documents, laptop, Grandma Pearl's photo album Mama thought she'd lost. I sat on my bed, staring at the room that had been mine for 23 years. Posters of Grace Hopper and Mae Jemison on the walls. The bookshelf Daddy had built when I was 8, before he decided I wasn't worth the effort. The window seat where I'd taught myself to code, dreaming of a different life. At 5 a.m., I heard Daddy's alarm. His bathroom routine was precise: shower, shave, coffee. I had a 30-minute window. I loaded my car silently, my ancient Honda Civic groaning under the weight. One last trip upstairs. I left an envelope on my bed containing my house key and a single sentence written in neat handwriting: I heard everything. Don't look for me. Then I vanished. The apartment was worse than the photos suggested. Water stains mapped the ceiling like continents. The radiator clanked like it was fighting ghosts. My neighbor's TV blared through paper-thin walls at all hours. But it was mine. Day 1, I cried. Day 2, I cried harder. Day 3, I got angry. By day 7, I'd turned that anger into fuel. I'd ignored 43 calls from my family. Mama's voicemails progressed from concerned to angry to almost apologetic. Baby, let's talk about this. You're being dramatic. We were just having a conversation. You're blowing this out of proportion. Tamara sent texts dripping with condescension: real mature, Ariana. Running away like a child. You're proving exactly why we needed to have that talk. Luke sent one message: you still owe this month's rent. Only Daddy was silent. I blocked them all. Rochelle came over with Chinese food and wine. She sat on my floor, I had no furniture yet, and listened while I ugly cried the whole story. Good, she said when I finished. You needed to leave. Now what? Now? I wiped my eyes. Now I make my app work. I'm going all in. With what money? I showed her my plan. Quit TechMart. Use my savings to live lean for 6 months while I launched the app properly. Apply for startup accelerators. Network aggressively. I'd been playing it safe, working part-time, treating my dream like a hobby. No more. Rochelle raised her wine. To burning bridges and building empires. We clinked glasses. I didn't know if I'd succeed. But I knew I'd rather fail on my own terms than suffocate in their expectations. 3 months of rejection letters later, I got the email that changed everything. Dear Ms. Ariana Washington, congratulations. You've been accepted into the TechRise Accelerator program. I screamed so loud my neighbor banged on the wall. TechRise was prestigious, only 30 startups accepted nationwide, 3-month intensive program, $50,000 in seed funding, and mentorship from successful tech founders. I'd applied on a whim, certain they'd laugh at my little financial literacy app. But they hadn't laughed. The acceptance letter praised FinanceGlow's innovative approach to making investment accessible for underserved communities, and called my user interface intuitive and refreshingly unpretentious. I called Rochelle sobbing. They said yes. They actually said yes. Of course they did. Your app is brilliant. When do you start? 2 weeks. In Seattle. Seattle? Her voice dropped. That's across the country. I know. My apartment lease was month to month. I had no ties here anymore. No family who wanted me. No reason to stay. Then pack your bags, girl. Go show them what Ariana Washington can do. The program was brutal. 18-hour days of coding, pitching, networking, and workshops. I met my cohort, entrepreneurs from Harvard, Stanford, MIT. I was the only one from a community college. On day 3, a venture capitalist named David Wood cornered me after my pitch. Your app targets a demographic most fintech ignores. That's smart. But your monetization strategy is weak. Let me help you fix that. He became my mentor. Pushed me harder than anyone ever had. Helped me see Finance Glow not as my baby, but as a business. You're thinking too small, David said during our 6th mentorship session. We sat in TechRise's glass-walled conference room, Seattle's skyline glittering behind him. Finance Glow teaches basic investing. Fine. But what if it did more? Like what? I'd been up for 36 hours straight debugging the portfolio tracking feature. Everything looked like code. What if, he leaned forward, it automated wealth building? Small, incremental investments based on spending habits. Round up purchases to the nearest dollar, invest the difference. Partner with banks for seamless integration. Make wealth building unconscious. My exhausted brain sparked. Like acorns, but targeted specifically for communities that traditional investment firms ignore. With educational content baked in. Exactly. And here's the kicker, you could license the technology to banks. Multiple revenue streams. I spent the next week rebuilding Finance Glow's core architecture. The other founders thought I was crazy, scrapping 3 months of work. But David saw something I'd missed. My app wasn't just a product. It was a platform. We pitched the new version to a room full of investors. I stood there in my thrift store blazer, facing people in Tom Ford suits, and I spoke about my grandmother. How she'd cleaned houses her whole life but died broke because nobody taught her about compound interest. How millions of Black Americans were locked out of generational wealth not because of lack of work ethic, but lack of access and education. Finance Glow doesn't just teach people to invest, I concluded. It builds wealth while they sleep. Painlessly. Automatically. And it starts with spare change. The room was silent. Then Luke Reyes from Crestview Capital stood. I want in. $500,000 for 15% equity. I nearly dropped the microphone. $500,000. For something I'd built in my childhood bedroom while my family plotted to kick me out. I need to think, I started. $750,000, interrupted Sarah O'Brien from Pinnacle Ventures. 12%. The room erupted. Investors shouting numbers, percentages. David grabbed my elbow, steered me to the hallway. Breathe, he commanded. This is what you wanted. But don't decide here. Let them submit formal offers. We'll review tomorrow. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my tiny Seattle sublet, looking at the 7 official offers that had flooded my email. The numbers were insane. The lowest was $400,000. The highest, from a consortium led by Crestview Capital, was $2 million for 25% equity. $2 million. My phone rang. Unknown number. I usually ignored those, but something made me answer. Ariana Washington. A woman's voice, professional but warm. This is Jennifer Park from Goldman Sachs Innovation Fund. I saw your pitch. It was remarkable. Thank you, but I can't really. I want to offer you $5 million. The world tilted. I'm sorry, what? $5 million, 20% equity, and full operational control. You stay CEO. We provide infrastructure, banking partnerships, and regulatory guidance. We believe Finance Glow could be a unicorn, billion-dollar valuation within 5 years. But only with you leading it. I sat down hard on my bed. Why? Why me? Jennifer's voice softened. Because I was you once. First-generation college student, family who didn't understand, big dreams everyone called foolish. I know what it takes to build something from nothing. And I see that fire in you. I took Goldman Sachs's offer. $5 million hit my account on a Tuesday morning in November, 6 months after I'd disappeared from my family's house. I was 24 years old, CEO of my own company, and absolutely terrified. David helped me assemble a team. Software engineers from Facebook and Google. A CFO who'd taken 3 startups public. A marketing director who'd built viral campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. We rented office space in Seattle's tech corridor, all exposed brick and standing desks. I hired someone else too. A lawyer named Patricia Reynolds, who specialized in intellectual property and corporate structure. I want everything airtight, I told her during our first meeting. Every contract, every agreement, every piece of documentation. Can you do that? Patricia studied me over her glasses. You're expecting someone to challenge your ownership. I'm expecting my family to come crawling out of the woodwork the second they smell money. Smart, she said. Let's build a fortress. We did. Finance Glow was incorporated entirely in my name. Every line of code I'd written was copyrighted with timestamps proving I'd created it before any outside funding. Patricia had me document everything, my original notebooks, beta testing feedback, even the laptop I'd used, with its dated file creation logs. If anyone tries to claim they helped you build this, Patricia said, we'll bury them in evidence. Finance Glow launched publicly in March. Within 24 hours, we had 50,000 downloads. By week's end, 200,000. The press loved the story, young black woman from nothing, building wealth technology for underserved communities. Forbes called. Then TechCrunch. Then CNN. And then my phone rang with a number I'd tried to forget. Ariana. Baby, we've been trying to reach you for months. Mama's voice was sugary sweet, nothing like the tired resignation I'd heard through that door. We saw you on the news. Oh honey, we're so proud. I stood at my floor-to-ceiling office window, looking down at Seattle's streets. Are you? Of course. Why wouldn't we be? You're our daughter, our baby girl. We always knew you'd do something special. The lie was so blatant it was almost beautiful. What do you want, Mama? Silence. Then, that's hurtful, Ariana. We just want to reconnect. Family is family. We've been worried sick. You were worried about $1,200 in rent. Not about me. You heard, we were just talking, baby. You took it wrong. We were trying to help you, push you toward. I heard every word, I cut her off. Every single word. You called me a burden. You wanted to evict me so you could profit off my room. Don't rewrite history now that my ridiculous app idea is worth something. I heard muffled conversation, she'd covered the phone. When she came back, her voice had hardened. Fine. You want honesty? Yes, we thought you needed a push. And look, we were right. You're successful now. Maybe you should thank us for the motivation. The audacity actually made me laugh. Goodbye, Mama. Ariana Marie Washington, you listen to me. I hung up. 30 seconds later, Tamara called. Then Luke. Then, surprisingly, Daddy. I blocked them all. Again. But they didn't stop. They found my work email. They contacted my assistant. They showed up at my office building, only to be turned away by security I'd specifically briefed on their descriptions. Then the letters started arriving. From lawyers. Patricia walked into my office holding 3 separate legal documents, her expression grim. They're suing you. All of them. Separately. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been reviewing user metrics. FinanceGlow now had 1.3 million active users. We just closed a series of funding round at a $75 million valuation. And my family wanted their piece. On what grounds? Your mother claims she provided financial support during your app's development, the $500 monthly rent you paid. She's calling it an investment in your business. She wants 15% equity. I laughed bitterly. I paid rent to live in a house. That's not an investment, that's a transaction. I know. It's absurd. But there's more. Your sister Tamara claims she gave you the idea for FinanceGlow during a conversation 3 years ago about financial literacy. She wants 20% equity and is claiming intellectual property theft. That conversation never happened. I've never discussed anything meaningful with Tamara. I believe you. But her lawyer is competent. They'll make this messy. And your brother Luke. Patricia paused. He's claiming that the laptop you used to build the initial app was purchased with family money, therefore the intellectual property created on it is partially family property. He wants 10%. That laptop was a Christmas gift when I was 19. You can't retroactively claim a gift was a business investment. You're right. These lawsuits are baseless. But defending them will be expensive, time-consuming, and very public. That's the point. They're trying to pressure you into settling. I stood, paced. No settlements. Fight all 3. I want discovery. I want every text message, every voicemail, every piece of evidence showing exactly how they treated me before they knew FinanceGlow would succeed. Patricia smiled. Now you're thinking like a CEO. This will get ugly. Good, I said. Let it. The lawsuits went public within days. Tech blogs picked up the story. FinanceGlow's CEO sued by entire family made for delicious headlines. My lawyer held a press conference, and I stood beside her, wearing a navy suit I'd bought specifically for this moment. My family is attempting to claim ownership of a company they actively discouraged me from building, I said into the microphone, my voice steady despite my hammering heart. They're rewriting history because my success embarrasses their narrative. I won't be extorted. Patricia released the receipts. The voicemails. The texts. The documentation showing I'd paid them rent, not received investment. My beta testing logs, time-stamped 2 years before I'd even moved out, proving the app was fully my conception. But the real bombshell came during discovery. My lawyer subpoenaed their communications, expecting to find evidence of their coordinated lawsuit strategy. What we found was so much better. They were suing each other too. Mama had filed against Tamara and Luke, claiming that if anyone deserved equity in my company, it was her as my mother. Tamara had countersued Mama, arguing her intellectual property claim was superior. Luke had sued both of them, claiming they'd conspired to cut him out of settlement negotiations. Their separate lawyers were bleeding them dry, each case costing tens of thousands in legal fees. And they were losing. Patricia came into my office with a bottle of champagne. Judge Morrison dismissed Tamara's case entirely. Called it frivolous and potentially fraudulent. Your mother's case is hanging by a thread. Luke's will likely be dismissed next week. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. They're destroying themselves, I said quietly. Over money they were never entitled to. That's greed, Patricia replied. They thought you'd be an easy target. They were wrong. Just when I thought the chaos couldn't escalate further, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize but somehow knew I should answer. Miss Washington. This is Gerald Chapman, attorney for Pearl Washington's estate. Grandma Pearl. Dead 12 years, but her name still made my chest tight. I'm calling because we've recently completed probate on some assets that were overlooked. Your grandmother had a secondary account, separate from the college fund your family liquidated. She was quite specific in her will that this account was for you, and only you. The original executor failed to locate it. My heart started racing. How much? $173,000. It's been accruing interest for 12 years. Current value is approximately $248,000. I sat down hard. Grandma Pearl had hidden money for me. Protected it from them. There's a letter too, Gerald continued. She left instructions that you were to receive it when you turned 25, or if you ever needed it sooner. Given the circumstances, your family's lawsuits are public record. I'm exercising executor discretion to release it now. The letter arrived 3 days later. Grandma's handwriting, shaky but determined. My sweet Ariana, if you're reading this, then you've discovered you're worth more than they tell you. I see how they overlook you, baby. How they save their pride for Tamara and their patience for Luke, and treat you like an afterthought. Don't you believe it? You're the diamond in that family. The one with dreams bigger than their small minds can understand. This money is yours. Build something beautiful. And don't let them take it. Love, your Grandma Pearl. I cried for an hour. Then I did something unexpected. I donated every penny to a scholarship fund for first-generation computer science students at community colleges. The Pearl Washington Fund for Overlooked Dreamers. When reporters asked why, I told the truth. My grandmother gave me something more valuable than money. She gave me permission to believe in myself when no one else did. I'm passing that forward. 2 years after I vanished from my family's house, Finance Glow crossed $1 billion in valuation. We'd expanded into banking partnerships with 15 major institutions. Our users had collectively invested over $500 million in automated wealth building. We'd changed lives. I changed too. I bought a house in Seattle, nothing flashy, just a craftsman with a garden and windows that let in light. I hired a therapist who specialized in family trauma. I learned that success wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving myself right. The lawsuits were all dismissed with prejudice. Mama, Tamara, and Luke each owed me legal fees, $73,000 collectively. I forgave the debt publicly, with one condition: they had to attend a financial literacy course using Finance Glow. They never did. They sent a final letter, unsigned, claiming I'd abandoned family and would regret my choices. I framed it in my office bathroom as a reminder of what I'd escaped. Daddy called once, late at night. He was crying. "I'm sorry," he said. "For all of it. You deserved better." I didn't forgive him. But I listened. Maybe someday, that wound would heal. Maybe not. I was learning I didn't owe anyone my pain or my peace. Rochelle became Finance Glow's chief community officer. Together, we built mentorship programs for young Black women in tech. Every month, I spoke at colleges, community centers, anywhere that would have me, telling the same story: you don't need permission to build your dreams. You just need audacity and stubbornness. Forbes called me the wealth builder for the forgotten. Fortune magazine said I'd revolutionized accessible investing. But my favorite headline came from a small community newspaper: "Local girl makes good, proves family wrong." Standing in my office, looking at Seattle's skyline, I thought about that night. The whispers behind the door. The escape plan. The terrifying leap into nothing. I'd built an empire on spite and survival. And it felt glorious.